Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I brought back Geek Rambles to discuss some of our thoughts on the 14th Doctor, our hopes for the 14th series, and so much more. But before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button, I'd be ever so grateful. We're just over 300 subscribers away from 13,000, so if we could get there pretty soon, I'd be greatly appreciative of that. Also, go follow me on Twitter if you don't already, as I post regularly about my Doctor Who opinions over there. But with that said, let's get into the video. I feel like it's going to be, like, the question of what you were doing when the 14th Doctor was announced is going to become, like, that sort of, like, where were you when JFK was assassinated sort of question. Like, the same thing happened with, like, Russell, but what were you doing the moment that news dropped?
This is going to be such a geeky answer, but I was actually rewatching Capaldi.
Oh, really?
And a friend of mine messaged me, text me, and just said, "You'll never guess what I've just seen on Instagram," and sent it to me. And I said, initially I just went, "What?" And then it all clicked in my brain. And then I said, "Who's that?" Out of sheer panic and shock, I completely forgot that I just binge watched all of Sex Education.
Yeah.
And that was it. And that's when I messaged you, just saying, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's happening!" Like, I think today is the day. For me, I was. People know this. I was away. I was at my dad's. It would happen while I was away from all my recording stuff. It would. And I saw the Instagram post and I was like, okay, something's going on here. And then I saw Bad Wolf tweet it out and I was like, okay, this definitely isn't just them teasing for the sake of it. If they've got Bad Wolf in on it, something's going on. And then so I basically did a quick video before it was official. Like, in my head, it was pretty much official because Bad Wolf had posted it. And at that point, it's like, well, it came over there. They've officially pretty much said. And then, obviously, half an hour after that, they drop a tweet officially, just being like, yeah, here he is, the new one.
It didn't actually sort of, like I said, when everything clicked, it wasn't until I scrolled down and saw that RTD I think he posted something like, "This is the future." And I thought, he's not going to do us like that. He wouldn't do this to us if it was nothing. That's before I saw his tweet, though, about posting things that weren't actually legitimate.
Yeah, no, apparently he's posted like leaks like the deliberately to throw people off the scent, which makes me wonder, has he got a Reddit account and have I been duped? But
definitely.
Those steps, probably. In any case, though, like, yeah, the announcement did just sort of drop out of nowhere. And like, I know that you said that like was one of the first things we said to each other via DMs and stuff. If you'd have told me that's how they were gonna do it, I'd have been like, no, you need something bigger than that for the new Doctor. You need something more grandiose. But having said that,
we're going to say the exact same thing. I know it already. Yeah.
I did like just the amount of hype that was generated just by the sheer chaos of it. I quite liked it. And I think as well, like, they did, obviously, they had, I think RTD said at an interview at the BAFTAs, "Oh, we've just got the biggest free press launch, we could possibly get." And it's like, yeah, you kind of did. Like, you haven't had to, there was no need to pay for a studio audience or a big reveal or a trailer that you had to like edit together. It was just, oh, he's here. This is the new one. And I think actually, I know that I'm rambling, but it feels like a statement of intent for the new era to be like, they're cutting back the pomp and circumstance of it, almost. The pompousness and circumstance, going, yeah, this is Doctor Who. This is with it and now and hip and let's go. This is the vibe the announcement gave me, which I kind of like.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I wanted a big, I thought, this is so funny. It's what I mentioned in my last video, actually, is that what I think I want, I definitely do not want. So what I wanted was for a Jodie-esque style, a Peter Capaldi-esque style reveal, and for us to know the date of that. Yeah. Now, because no one saw it coming, I think I said in the last video that we did that I wanted to stay away from whatever date they were going to reveal the next Doctor, because I wanted my reaction to be as authentic as possible. This was my reaction as authentic as possible, because Twitter just went balmy, which is brilliant. I've never been so happy to see so many other people excited just to be excited again.
It's absolutely. I'm completely with you. I say it on Twitter, like it's just so nice to be excited for Doctor Who
Yeah.
again. I've made no secret that like this year hasn't really been for me. I've said that before, and I think, look, obviously, it's hard to say this on Twitter, especially because people do get very defensive, and I kind of understand why. But the reality is, it hasn't worked for a lot of people. Like, if we're being honest, obviously, there's plenty of people it has worked for as well. But I definitely think this era, you can't deny it's been one of the more divisive of the recent revival.
Yeah.
Arguably the most so in that sense, because even within the people who like it, there are people like, oh, I prefer Series 11 when it was more stripped back, and people are like, no, actually, I prefer Series 12 and Flux, where it's all lore and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely one of the more divisive periods of the show, no matter how you look at it. So I think just to have something that, like, even people who I honestly thought weren't going to like the announcement, liking the announcement was quite nice. And I think for me, I was worried. Obviously, I know you said earlier you'd seen all of Sex Education, you'd binged it recently. I've only seen like 3 or 4, 5 episodes like of the first series, because a mate of mine was an extra in it.
Oh, wicked.
So
okay.
yeah, I watched it for him basically. I actually didn't ever get to his scenes, but it was, the thought was there. Yeah, so I haven't seen much of him in that. But when you just get a vibe that someone's right for it? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like, as soon as I saw there's pictures of him online in like a suit, and there's one of them where he's doing like a sideways grin, and it was that one where I was like, that was the one where I was like, yes, I see it. I see the vision. And yeah, it was just really nice. And I think the biggest reaction I've seen is kind of one of, at the very least, hopeful optimism. And like, sort of, even if you are on the fence, like, it's still a hopeful outlook, which is really nice.
Yeah, I was so happy, and not just because I know him. By the way, keep watching Sex Education, you'll love it. It's brilliant.
I will. I have to finish it now.
Yeah, honestly, you'll love it. His excitement, his general happiness. I mean, how on earth do you, even if you don't know who he is, I don't know how he does it, but he just seems to convey this energy, even if it's just through an image, that I just was exactly the same as you, to be fair. And I just thought, I can see myself falling in love with you as a Doctor, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds stupid, but it's like, if you can picture them in the suit or with a Sonic and stuff like that, that goes a long way, I think, in easing your apprehension towards a casting. Like, if you can look at someone and go, yeah, I can, like, for me, I had a very similar effect with like what I think a lot of people had with Capaldi, where it's like, yeah, this just makes sense. This just clicks as a casting. Because admittedly, with Jodie, like, obviously I did have some reservations, but that not only because I suppose I hadn't really seen her or anything. Obviously, I knew Broadchurch was the thing, but I hadn't really seen any of it. And obviously, because of, at the time, I think people forget how big of a change the gender was at the time that it happened. We kind of, sort of look back on it with this sense of like, oh, remember when we thought that was a big deal sort of thing. But like, it was at the time. Like, at the time that had never happened, there were a lot of people saying, well, how is it going to work with the dynamics of the show and everything? And so I don't even think it was Jodie's fault herself necessarily.
No.
It was just a case of like, she was inevitably going to have more to prove there, regardless. She was always going to have one of the harder jobs. And obviously, every Doctor's got a hard job. But I just think, for me, it was just nice to have a Doctor announcement where I was just on board from the word go.
I am very, very happy with the casting choice for the 14th. And I don't have any reservations. This is purely just my own thing, is that I purposely wanted a woman again because I didn't want it to be proved that it was a woman that was the issue. And I know we've got Jo Martin to sort of take away a little bit of that, but she's still not enough.
Yeah, I absolutely, like, I see that 100%. It is one of those things with that debate. I'm very much in agreement with you, but it's a hard one, really.
It's like, really difficult. The thing is, it is.
With this casting, he was never going to get it 100% right.
No.
Like, in the sense of like, you cast another woman, you'll have people being like, oh, show's ruined again, whatever, And then, but if you cast, a man, you go back to that, you're going to have people going, oh, well, this is a step backwards. This is kind of going against what was kind of set up with Jodie and everything. So he was never going to please everyone, especially now. Like it is admittedly a difficult time to cast a Doctor, what with Jodie Whittaker and Joe Martin opening up the field as much as they did. You know, there's so many optics to the casting. Part of me is glad that he just went for the person who, because he's even sent interviews, you know, like, yeah, this guy, I just saw him pretty much immediately and was like, yep, this is it. And like, I trust that judgment, but I absolutely agree with you in the sense of like, I completely get why, from a optics standpoint, people wanted it to be another woman. And, you know, I wouldn't have even been opposed to it. Like, Tania Miller was in my choices, like top choices for it. So
yeah, me too.
You know, it's the sort of thing, I don't think this rules out, you know, another female Doctor in the future at all. I think the people who are celebrating the fact that it's not a woman, we're gonna do that at some point regardless. They could have had like 15 female Doctors in a row, like the 28th Doctor, that's just a random number I pulled, would be a man, and they go, see, they're finally admitting it. A woman Doctor is wrong. So
I just want to make it so perfectly clear though that I don't think that casting a male is a step back. Don't. It's like 1% of me that feels this way about the female Doctor, purely for the sake of it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the casting choice was perfect. I'm not.
I think it's understandable though. Like I think what I take issue with is something I have seen online is like people saying this announcement was unfair to Jodie because like it's happened, and it's like, I'm sorry, but this kind of happens like every time. Like,
and not only that, but I mean, Matt Smith was kind of brought in the same way that Gatwell was, so that's fine. But oh my god, imagine being Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi gets announced in the way that he was way before Smith left. Imagine being Capaldi and Whittaker, the first female Doctor in history, gets announced in the way that she is way before he's even left. Like, this isn't like it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And it's been done in a way bigger way. And actually, I think they've done the fairest route of doing it in the way that they did. And I saw a video. I'm going to start rambling now, but my name won't be rambles. We didn't do that. And it's RTD saying that he doesn't want this to take away from Whittaker at all. He wants people to still respect her as the Doctor, and that just shows me what a great professional man he is, and how he has done it has been in the most authentic, genuine. And to all of those that say box ticking, no, it's not box ticking. It is 100% casting the right person for the role, which is what we all want and need.
Like, he's a very decorated actor with a huge following, like especially among the young demographic, which is really what Doctor Who needs to be pulling in. You know, obviously I'm quite a young person myself, but I mean, in terms of, I've been doing this for a while, but there are a lot of people my age, especially, who fell off Doctor Who, particularly around Tennant and Smith, depending on, you know, age, and haven't really jumped back on, or just, you know, Doctor Who just never really was on their radar for various different reasons. But now they're seeing someone who they love in another show, a massively successful show, and they are now saying, we're going to go watch Doctor Who as a result. So already he's bringing in new fans without him even having to do anything. And isn't that just what the perfect casting should be doing? I've seen people who I didn't even know they knew what Doctor Who was, being like, oh my god,
true,
you know, I love this casting decision. Like Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Kingpin in like Daredevil, and Simu Lee, who's in Shang-Chi as well. People who I had no idea knew what Doctor Who was, going like, yes, can't wait, great casting. And you know what? That's what it's all about, getting new people on board, really. That's the point of Doctor Who reinventing itself.
They quite obviously get along Shooty and RTD, they obviously get along very, very well. They've got great chemistry, so they will have a fantastic professional working relationship. And I mean, the guy has never maybe 2% has put a foot wrong when it comes to RTD.
But he's got a very, very consistent track record.
Look at how much faith was brought back in when he was announced as being the showrunner again.
Yeah.
You know, so that just is a testament to how consistent he has been. But I am so unbelievably excited. I just, like you said, he's going to write Shooty so well, and I can feel it. I always trust your gut, and my gut is saying that this is going to be incredible.
Exactly. I'm in complete agreement with you, because you've seen more of Sex than me. how do you think he's generally going to portray it? Because I don't know.
Well, I mean, sex education is going to be a whole completely different kettle of fish.
Yes, yeah.
For starters. But I think the thing about Ncuti, from what I've seen in performance, is that he is excellent at all the traits I want in a doctor. Actually, he is great at the emotional element, he is great at comedic element, and he can do darkness. The one thing I can't say that I've seen so far, someone correct me if I'm wrong, that's totally fine, is I haven't seen anger.
Yeah.
And that's something, I'm not saying like, oh, do like a Colin Baker and go around strangling people, but you know, I've not seen anger that is like on a Tennant, no, not even Tennant Smith level, where you can tell in a look. It's a bit like, you know, when in The Angels Take Manhattan, when he saw the last chapter title.
Yeah.
And you saw it in his face and in his reaction about how frustrated he was. And that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I haven't seen from him.
The vibe I'm getting at the moment, and I could be completely off base, I normally am with these things. When Jodie was cast, I was expecting a sort of more serious sort of personality. Given Broadchurch and also given Chris Chibnall's work on Torchwood, I was kind of expecting a slightly more, not morose, but almost sort of, I was expecting a more, I guess, kind of like a Ninth Doctor-esque thing in a sense. But kind of different. But like with this, the vibe I'm getting, there is a bit of Ninth Doctor in there. And I'm gonna like, there is also a lot of Matt Smith's Doctor, the 11th Doctor, in there as well. Like, I think he can do the goofiness really well. I also think, though, if you would get on his bad side as the Doctor, it's not going to be a pretty sight for you. That's the vibe I'm getting at the moment. Again, could be completely wrong, and they could go in a completely different direction with it. But just given the general vibes of how he, like, you've got to like analyze his speech and his mannerisms and how he performs other things. That's the vibe I'm getting. Could be completely wrong.
No, you're not. And I think after Capaldi, they wanted to try and get away from the grumpy Doctor, which was kind of a bad move in my opinion. But actually, it's funny you mentioned 9 when you talk about Gatwood, because I actually can see a lot of McGann in him. And I mean, I'm referring to the Night of the Doctor, you know, more like the sarcasm, like, oh, I'm the Doctor, but not the one you're expecting. And when he's on Khan, and you know, they say,
I can.
And he says, the sisters of utter boredom. And he says, oh no, eternal life. And he goes, that's the one. I can just see that. I can see that. I can also see
the cheeky chap 10 a bit as well. Definitely. It's like what I said earlier, like the grinning picture. I can just imagine him being like, you want to come for a ride with me, you know, in my little spaceship, you know, like come for a trip. It's like,
let's just have a good time. I think they'll take that back to just someone who wants to just go travel, see things, and help out when they can. And I'm glad that that's going to be a thing.
You said this to me. You said you wanted one companion, and I agree. I think you said it on I think when I was doing the live stream, you said one companion plus Ncuti, and I agree with that. I think it's fine to maybe have their extended family or like a Rory type figure who like alternates or River or whatever. But I agree with you. One to start with, I think, is good. I know people say, oh, but you can do bigger casts. Well, and I'm not going to deny that you can, but I do think the staggered approach works better. And I do think, for me, I think, especially for a fresh era of the show, which is what this whole thing seems to be signaling to me, I think you don't want to bombard people with a bunch of characters. You kind of want to keep it as simple and to the point as possible. Very much what will happen with Series 1. You have Rose, you have an everyday London, you know, girl going about her life, and then you have Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, who's this kind of dark figure that you haven't fully figured out yet, but you figure out more bits as you go along. That, obviously, I'm not saying I want copy-paste Series 1 again. But I definitely think the grounded aspect of Series 1 is one that I hope is carried over. I think it's definitely what he's going to do, because he said, like in interviews, you know, oh, we're doing lots of new monsters, which I am very excited for, because we haven't really had a major, like, iconic recurring villain, arguably since The Silence were like the last.
Very true.
Truly, I'd say iconic recurring. I know we had like Tim Shaw But like, being honest with ourselves, can you really say that's an iconic Doctor Who monster?
Chibnall quite clearly tried to do a Moffat, and I actually liked Tim Shaw as a villain for that first episode.
For
I
the
thought
first
that
episode,
was
he's fine, but like a
he's
big
fine.
finale villain, it's like,
Yeah, I don't think of him and think, oh, that geezer's frightening. Like, he does not do anything for me.
But I'm very excited by the prospect of new villains because I know how good RTD's original like monsters were. Thinking of the Ood, the Sycorax, the Slitheen, the Adipose, they all felt like they occupied the same universe, and they were all iconic. Obviously, like the most iconic was Leaping Angels, which was Stephen, but like RTD is a fabulous world builder. Like he's a brilliant guy in terms of, you know, having a world that feels cohesive and feels alive. And I feel like that's something we kind of lost, not even just with Chibnall, but with Moffat to a certain degree. There was less focus on the world at large and more focus on, you know, I guess these more personal character-based stories. I like to a certain degree, but I think the world-building nature of Russell is perfect for now, especially with things like Marvel. Yeah, I'm very, very excited by the prospect of new villains.
I think I asked you this yesterday. I don't think you actually caught it on your live stream.
Oh yeah, sorry, it was going really quickly.
Oh, it was so fast. I do not blame you for 1 second.
Yeah.
I know you tried to keep up with me as much as you could.
Yeah.
But I asked if any showrunner or previous showrunner, I mean, I know that he's coming back as showrunner, but if any previous showrunner has come back as a guest writer, because I would love to see Moffat pen a couple of Shooty's episodes. I think he would do really well.
I agree. The only thing I can think of that would be, I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, Terrence Dicks was script editor for, I think, the Pertwee era. He came back to do the Five Doctors. And
okay.
I know Robert Holmes was like a major creative force behind the Tom Baker era. It was him and Philip Hinchcliffe. He came back to do Caves of Androzani, I think. So it's definitely something that's happened, mostly in the classic show. You don't tend to get, because the thing is, the role of what a showrunner actually is in the classic show and the new show are kind of two different like things. In the case of like JNT in the 80s, for example, he kind of just sort of was like, this is the vibe I'd like. And then he'd get, you know, other people to write whatever episodes that people thought of. Whereas with showrunners now, they're much more involved in the writing and the creative process, perhaps more so than they were back then. So that's why you don't tend to get showrunners coming back, because they are almost burnt out by it, like because it's been so dominant. But with all that being said, with how good of friends we know Moffat and Russell are, and how much Moffat himself has kind of been involved in the teasing for this new era, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he did one or two across the era, which I would love. I think Russell and Stephen, when you put those two together, something truly like magical happens. And
words out of my mouth. If we had an episode penned by them both, it would just, I think it would be every Whovian's dream, wouldn't it? I think we'd all just combust out of sheer amazement.
Absolutely. It's just they bounce off each other so well. I've said before, they're kind of two halves of the puzzle. Like, Moffat is very good at these like high concept, grand fairy tale stories. Like, even if you look inside Russell's era, you look at Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, it feels like massive in scope, very fairy tale-esque, with the whole element of like, you know, a girl watching the TV and that's actually going on, and you've got the whole thing of her being the sort of conscience of the library and all that sort of stuff. It feels very dream-esque, very fairy tale-esque. But then you've got Russell, who's very good at people. He gets people like really well. I've watched It's a Sin recently as well, and that's phenomenal.
Wonderful.
He writes people who feel like people. They not only like feel like people, but feel like people that you know in real life. And that's something I've really been missing with Chibnall. His people don't really feel like people to me. They feel like characters. And I can't imagine what they do on a day-to-day, but someone like, I don't know, Rose, or like Donna or Martha, or even side characters like Jack and Tyler, I can imagine what they do day to day.
Yeah, you're right. They are very, very real. But that brings me on to something else, actually. Companion wise,
Yes.
as much as I want one, I want one, you want one, I think that's going to be
Yeah.
quite a popular opinion. I do not want modern day London female.
Yeah, that is the one thing I'm like, the thing is, one thing I will give the Chibnall era, I'm about to give the Chibnall era compliments. Everyone sit down. No, one thing I'll compliment it on is broadening out slightly the sort of companions we got. Because before Chibnall's run, it was very, as you said, sort of 20 something, 19-year-old something from either like London, female. Obviously, that you did have your outliers like Nardole and etc. But even then, you still had like Bill, who did mostly fit into that archetype. And I do like Bill. I'm not saying that archetype's bad, but I agree with you in the sense of like one thing I'll give Chibnall though is you have Graham and you have Dan, who are older men from different parts of England. I know it's still in England, but it's different parts of England at least. So they did broaden it out a little bit. But I agree with you. I'd love to see someone just a bit different companion wise.
I would love, because if I think about what I would love and who I've loved in the past, I feel like Shooty would do this really well as well, but like a Trout and Jamie vibe, or a Trout and Victoria vibe, like that sort of thing.
I'd like a bromance, actually. A bromance would be quite fun.
Yeah, me too. Do you know what? Dan would be great at that.
Shout out to Debs Iona, Shane Smith, Ree Keffin, Seb Lowndes, Jay Monroe, Hash Shandycoot, Patrick Mewson, Simon Ashley, Steve Safaro, Andrew Townsend, Alex Robbins, Michael Dykes, Paul Bryden, Sam Yates, Michael Rhodes, Jerry the Meerkat, Heretic, Bibliotecaria Nerd, Cameron Jefferson, John M, Metahuvian, Ben Freeman. If you want to become a member, feel free to do so. It really helps out. You get exclusive posts, shout outs in every video, and even your own badge and custom emojis to use.